Hey everybody, welcome to Enhance Don't Distract. Today's episode number 48. We've got my co-host here, the J-Man. I think that's where we're going to stick for a little bit right now. Last week we had on Chuck and Anthony talking about IT things, and we just felt like there wasn't enough. So we're going to bring them back in today, Anthony and Chuck. Chuck's not on a boat today, so that's good. He's not vertical either, so that's also another benefit. But before we get started, we wanted to start doing, opening our podcast up in prayer. As you know, the whole point of this podcast is for the church to better them, and we want, God's guidance in everything that we do here. So, I'm going to open us up in prayer real quick, and then we'll kind of dive right in. Father God, we thank you so much for this podcast and this platform that you've opened up for us. Father, we just pray that you guide this conversation and give us the words and the tips to help people better your kingdom with the technology and to help them enhance things instead of distract them. Father, we just pray this in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. All right, Jordan, what do we got for today? I know we kind of all had like a bunch of things. We were like, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. So right. That's why there's this part two.
Yeah, because there's just so much to talk about when it comes to IT and churches and AVL and things like that. So today we wanted to kind of continue the conversation and really kick it off, starting about more email platforms and like workspace platforms. The juggernauts are Microsoft and Office 365 and Google. I think that's just a great place to start. Is if and I guess I always approach it like this. If you're starting a new church, like a brand new thing, like what would you pick? What route would you go?
Hotmail.
If you're not using Gmail, you're doing it wrong.
I'm thinking Yahoo or SBC Global.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask the first question then. So I get this because obviously we do IT as well. So, but I'm going to pose the question for the room. There's some verbiage when you sign up for either Google or Office 365 that is the inclusion contract.
DEI.
Yeah. And so most of my clients say, we don't use Google, or it's actually been pretty funny. I've heard from both sides, right? Oh yeah, we don't use Google because there's that term where like we have to hire an LGBTQ person, or we have to do blah 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 whatever, right? So we don't use them because they don't line up with our viewpoints and so on and so forth. How do we do that? And then there's the person that says the same thing about Microsoft, so that's why they don't use Office 365. Because I've had clients where I'm like, man, you guys need Teams. Like every issue
nobody needs Teams.
Oh no,
I'm with you.
Need Teams. Trust me, it kills me to say that, but the organization you can get with Teams, like you don't get that anywhere else. You just don't. You get that all in Slack?
Slack is 1,000 times better.
So I've never I used Slack like way back in the day, and it was just like a messaging app with like you could attach things. Yeah. That means now that they've added all of the extra features that Teams has. Because that was my problem like 3 years ago. We were on Google. We switched over to the 365 because it was like Google offered all of those things, but like it wasn't congruent in like where Teams, like everything is there, right? Like with Google, I have to go to all these individual things to like accomplish those goals. But okay, pause before we get it too deep into that. So the idea here is like, should that inclusion term be scary or not scary?
I've never had a problem with it.
You want my take on that?
Yes.
I kind of look at it like, people say, oh, I don't want to use Google for regular email because, they're spying on me, they're watching everything I do, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, at some point you embrace the horror or you get off the ride. Either you have to use their product or you have to get left behind, or
and like
want some other adventure.
As I say, like Microsoft's not doing the exact same thing,
or something about their product or their contract is going to be against what you feel is right. And, it's embrace the horror, get off the ride. That's my take.
It's the same thing with the on-prem to cloud transition.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Yeah. Just went through that.
We're just talking data in that intangible data.
Yep, I just went through that with a client.
I also
because then everybody could get into their data, and it's more. It took me a long time to get them to understand it was more secure and better for them with updates than having it on-prem.
I would also say too, I think just some of the benefits, and this may not be the greatest way to look at it, but I think some of the benefits outweigh that cost. And I would also say too, I don't know that you need to satisfy every step of that, like diversity, inclusion, and equity, but I think I look at it like, no, we are, I would hope churches are a diverse group. Maybe not in lifestyle, because that conflicts with some of the message of the church.
Yeah.
But hey, no, we are diverse. There are some people of color here, some African American people here. Or maybe it's even reverse. Maybe you're in more of an African American church, and there are white people on your staff. I think that gets to the heart of that.
I think that every client that I've ever had that has expressed that concern, it's not more of the nationality issues, because honestly, I don't really deal with any of that. I haven't really seen any of that. It's more of the lifestyle one, and that they're concerned about, that they're going to get sued into oblivion, and they're going to lose all their data and everything.
Well, I think what he's saying is that if you had to go up against Google on that, you could say, well, we are inclusive.
Right.
Yeah. And I would argue churches, and maybe this is a wake up call for some churches, but you need to be inclusive. Now, you do not need to, in my opinion,
no DEI.
But you do not need to go along with somebody. The church is a lifestyle changing community.
Mm-hmm.
We are all trying to change our own lifestyle to be more like Christ.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing that, you're not playing the game, and then it's, do you belong in the community? But that's a choice that people are making or not. And I know I'm in the deep end here, but I think people should always feel welcome, but at the same time too, we're expecting you to change. We're all trying to be more like Christ.
And nobody is, excluding anybody. I mean,
right.
If you're trying to help people, who are you trying to help? The people that are already there, or the people that are on their way?
Right? Yeah, people that are fixed or people broken.
Right. So if you're opening the door to people that need help, you're going to get people that need help.
Yeah. So in that sense, I think that churches satisfy that.
Right.
And that's where I'm like, let's go with it.
Yeah.
I think it's important to point out too that G Suite or Google Workspace, whatever it's called now, is free for nonprofits.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's the scary thing, right? For them is they don't want to go into a free environment and then be sued into oblivion. What I usually tell people is how often right now, exclude email, right? How often are you having someone from that community applying for a job at your church?
Right.
I would say that it right now in today's atmosphere, it's pretty unlikely, right? And the ones that it is likely at means that they're already accepting of that, and then it's still not a problem. So either which way, it's either your church is actively, doesn't agree with it and is, vocal about that, and you most likely don't have those members of your community there, which means that you don't have to hire someone that's not applying for a job, right? And then B, if you are a church that agrees with that and is okay with that, and your community is applying for jobs when they live that lifestyle, you're okay with it. So either which way, it's not a problem. I know I asked that question here in this forum because I get that question or that comment several times where it's like, oh, why are you guys not here? Why are you guys not using Google? We had a client that they were paying for Microsoft 365, and we were like, why are you guys not on Google? It's free. And they were like, oh yeah, because of this inclusion line. And we're like, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Google's not asking you to host a drag queen show.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Office 365 also has 10 free users for nonprofits.
Yes.
I was going to say too, it also, can't you get stuff through TechSoup?
Yep.
And basically get a free Office 365 platform?
Not free, but cheap.
Okay.
All
Good to
right,
know.
so that line is not scary and should not scare people away from using any of these platforms, no matter which one it is. Correct?
Yeah, and if it really is, and it's a sticking point where somebody really just cannot get past that, Zoho has a full suite of tools too. That's just like Google Workspace. It's got Sheets, Docs, Drive, email, and the emails are very, very reasonable. It's like $1 a month
Yeah.
per user.
Yeah, I use the
Or-
Zoho One suite of tools myself.
I would also add too, you're not paying them. You're not promoting, you're just
Yeah,
using their
right.
tools. Like that's where I say like the cost benefit is just way high.
Kylo.
It's Kylo Ren time.
And if you do need to jump off Gmail, like go for it. Like you're not going to be the first person to drop them. So
And Google also just upgraded the nonprofits to, was it 100 terabytes
Yep.
per
Holy smokes.
workspace,
Wow.
Yep.
which is insane. And then shared drives are unlimited
Yep.
Oh, once again.
using your data.
They'll fall under that 100 terabyte.
Nope.
Stealing my data.
Nope, shared drives are not included in the 100 terabytes.
I've gotten burned by that.
Well, no,
They're
so-
not.
So
I'll fight you on this.
So listen. They weren't, and then they were. And Anthony, you're saying that they're not again.
Correct.
All right, he's googling.
Okay, then
it.
that's new. Okay. Last I heard that they were.
Yeah, because Jordan, originally, like Chuck, when we switched over, when we worked together, that was a loophole we found. We created a shared drive and realized, oh, it's unlimited storage, so we just started dumping like terabytes of footage on
Yep.
there. And then a couple years go by, and I remember Sean coming on and going, "Oh yeah, they fixed that loophole."
No, yeah, I'm looking at it right now on Workspace Learning Center. Shared drives can contain up to a maximum of 500,000 items.
So it's limited to items, not storage space.
And again, if listeners that are not aware of like 100 terabytes, that's a large amount of data. Like
Oh yeah,
you got to work hard to fill that up.
For 98% of the people listening to this podcast, that will never happen.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I could make that happen if I tried.
I think
Yeah, not even recording these podcasts.
No, I mean, Sean just did a project where it's got like 4 cameras and it's only like 12 terabytes, and that's like all of the raw like video.
the biggest file share I manage it all is like 500 gig.
Nice. All right, so the next question I have, I'll just dive into the next question before we start getting into the Googles or the Microsofts or the Zohos, like more generic questions. Why should you use a custom domain and have all email for any staff managed by the church?
A lot of nonprofit, if you have to sign up for something nonprofit, they will not take you on a nonprofit domain or a custom domain. If it's just Gmail or Yahoo, they won't take you.
But there's also kind of a validation. What's the word I'm looking for? Professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
That if it's a nonprofit, people are already a little wary about giving money to something and having it be Joe at, nonprofit A versus Joe at Gmail makes it look more official. And hey, this is a real organization.
You mean
I wouldn't donate to one.
Joe, a nonprofit at gmail.com isn't a acceptable professional looking email.
Totally telling the truth at gmail.com.
Right.
Totally not a scam at gmail.com. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times people think that it is like some absorbent amount of money, right? Or they just don't know how, right? So it's like when you have a church that is a pastor or 2 pastors, right? It is like they think it's like, well, we're not going to spend $30 a month just so I can have a custom URL on there. Well, it's like we said, right? Most of these places either are super free or they're super cheap, right? So I think that's in my head. Chuck and I, we had a client that we've kind of been dealing. I don't want to say dealing. That sounds like it's like a struggle.
There are clients, but yeah,
we're working with a client to get them to understand fully why personal emails are not a good idea for staff members. The same thing with phone numbers, right? It kind of goes that same route, right? You need a phone number for the church, right? And an extension that maybe rings your cell phone, but then you're giving out the church phone number, right? Instead of your personal one. And again, I end up, having to be the boogeyman, right? Because people don't usually think about the worst things. What happens if you get hit by a bus, right? And now all of the contact that this person might have with the church is now dead, right? And they have your cell phone. Well, your cell phone goes away, right? Because you're dead, right? Or you quit, you get fired, the organization just changes directions and, you can't be reached anymore. For some, there's a plethora of reasons why, right? And so it's like the email needs to be managed, right? Like what happens if you are accused of something, right? Because of some email thing. Well, now the church can't do an investigation easily, right? And have things hold up in court very well, right? Or there's more extenuating, now there's warrants that have to be served to get into email accounts rather than just a IT manager going, oh, yeah, I can get into Jordan's email. Right?
That's a good point.
Type thought process. And it's like, then there's the accountability, right? You can't delete emails very easily on a legitimate, workspace account that's set up on a professional level, right? Those type of things. Though they're, if you get to the, the higher levels of like Gmail and the enterprise levels of like Microsoft, those emails are actually usable in court against something. And unfortunately, we have to think that is unfortunately a possibility in 2024, that there are so many things that could happen, right? That's my argument for having custom URL. You already have the website. Every church in America has a website. So the URL is already owned, right? So that's a cost that doesn't get associated with this. And then, like you said, a Google Workspace is free. Zoho is like $1 per account. So if you need 3 accounts, right, you're spending $3 a month. I think Microsoft 365, I think is like $6 a month or something like that per seat for nonprofit. So still, that's $18 a month for 3 seats. I feel like the protection that brings and the professionalism that brings is worth $18 a month.
Well, just even in tools. I mean, like with Microsoft Office, I think you also get like Word and PowerPoint, Excel.
I think you get the basics. I don't think you get
Sheets and all
PowerPoint.
that. Okay.
Maybe you do. I don't remember.
But I mean,
they keep changing that too.
That's where I think this is where I started to look at it. It's not just an email. It's like a work suite, workspace, and drive space too, like cloud space. Like
storage.
That's where it's like, if you're not, you're behind. Like in my opinion, you're just behind. Like,
Well,
365 comes with a terabyte.
Yep, OneDrive terabyte, and it's the security, the having the stuff online. Where now we have history. You store your stuff in Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, whatever. Delete it, you can go back and recover it. You get hit with a virus, you go back and recover it. That's something that people struggle with on their on-prem stuff because they don't back up, or they don't back up properly, they don't verify.
Yeah.
But you also have continuity with the email addresses. So, and I know we have this conversation often. Don't make Joe at nonprofita.com the point of contact for your QuickBooks or whatever. Make it admin or office or whatever, so that you can hand it off to the next person and not have to worry about where did those emails go. I just went through this with a nonprofit who almost lost their website and domain name because they had given it to somebody. They had set up, actually their office manager had set herself up as the point of contact for almost everything and then left.
Yeah.
And the timing was just perfect. It was almost 10 months later that their domain expired.
Dude, I had a client that had set up their ProPresenter stuff all under his name, and then he left, and then it expired like 6 months after he left.
Yep.
And that email had been, nuked. And so like they were all up a creek. I mean, what the church that we worked at, I kept trying to convince there's certain ministries that they're like, hey, we bought $100 worth of music on, Steve's iTunes account that can be played before and after. And it's like, okay, well that should have probably been bought on like a central, like this is all before like, the Spotify's and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so that was when, Chuck, I remember I came to you and I was like, we need an account that is for the AV department so that any music that needs to get bought for any event can get bought there with a church card, or individual ministry can put a gift card on to that account. We can buy it, and then it doesn't leave.
Yep.
Because Steve left, and then they were like, "Oh crap, what are we gonna do? We have $100 worth of music that we played before, because it was like a mood setter that they did. So they bought like a bunch of oldies music, and so it was like all that music was just gone. So they had to rebuy $100 worth of music, which on the grand scheme of things, for that church, it's not the end of the world. But like, if you were to do that for a church of 100 people, that's a really big deal,
Yeah.
right?
Plus the timing, it's always right when you need it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then that way, no matter who leaves,
2.5 weeks.
yeah, it's always accessible, right?
Yep. I've even seen this now though with like files. It's like, all right, cool, yeah. Then Steve's got a bunch of files in his drive. Hey, we want to close his account because he's no longer here. Like, where do those files go? So
Migrate
just encouraging. Yeah, you can migrate, but like this is where like from the start, like think about departmentally, think big buckets, think long term for your church and your organization. Yeah, Steve's in this team now, but like Jennifer might come in and be in this team later, and she might need access to that file. And if you don't have to deal with those migration stuff, it's so much easier.
Well, and especially when it comes to assets, right? Imagine Steve is hired and he has the church logo and he has the the church color palette and the church all of the documentation for
or the website
church,
login,
right? Website login, all that information, right? And then he leaves. You don't just magically no longer need the church logo because you decided to not employ a full-time staff member to manage your graphics and your website. Well, you still need all that information, and if it lives inside of only his email, right? That's why. Yeah. So we're just beating the dead horse, I think.
And you delegate that account out to Steve or to Jennifer as they're on the team, and the next people. Yeah. So.
All right, so I think you just said a key word there, which I think is interesting, but I think that my next question is, which we've already kind of talked about it, we already know Anthony's viewpoint. Which service are we using and why? Are we all kind of on the same page here? I think we are.
I'm on Gmail.
I'm a Gmail guy, or sorry, Workspace.
I'm okay with Office 365 as well.
And I guess, Anthony, I'll throw this to you. You were pretty adamant about it, so that's why I'll throw it to you. Why is Gmail the ultimate answer for you, and why were you so excited for Alphabet to win people's nonprofit services?
Well, it's free with unlimited users. It's the only one.
And churches love that word.
Free.
Unlimited users or free?
Both. The funny thing
Church
is,
goers probably like unlimited, but
I think the fun thing about the unlimited is when I have a client where they're they're a small church and they've got maybe 6 staff members / board members that need a church email, and you're like, yeah, it's unlimited. They're like, it's unlimited. Oh my gosh.
You get an email.
Right. Exactly.
They turn into Oprah.
You're a junior deacon in training. You get an email.
The volunteer who sets up coffee in the narthex, he needs an email,
which he won't read, but there'll still be planning center invites sent to that email.
Oh my gosh, we're not talking from experience at all.
No,
yeah.
But also think about this, think about prayer at your church.org, pastor, or just even those other non-specific people accounts that you're going to want, or info, and
Yep.
Accounts payable, accounts receivable.
I love Gmail just because it's so intuitive.
Yeah.
And Chuck, you also hit on this earlier. Security is just so high. I also we did this at the previous churches I was at, and I think it could be a game changer for some churches, but Gmail, also using Chromebooks. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but getting a good device for sub $400, $500, that's what some church staff members only need.
So I think that, Jordan, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I actually just had this conversation with my dad not too long ago. And he's like, well, I don't have a computer because I can't afford one. And I was like, well, you can go get a Chromebook for, $200. He's like, well, I need a computer. And I was like, no. Well, I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, list the things you do right now. And for him, it was like, well, I go on Facebook. Okay. You can do that on Chrome browser. Okay. I pay my bills. Chrome browser. Okay. I watch YouTube. Chrome browser. I play, this like chess game, and I like Googled it, and I was like, Chrome browser. It's like all these things. I was like, what else do you do? He's like, well, I like to watch Netflix. Chrome browser. And I'm like, literally, like, he's like, well, I need to check my bank account. Chrome browser, right? Everything that you do is in a Chrome browser. You check your email. Well, what email do you use, Dad? Gmail. Okay, well, Chrome browser, right? And it's like, you need to type out a document. Google Sheets, Google Docs, like he never makes slideshows,
On
but
Google
right,
Chrome.
right.
Yeah.
All of those things are all Chrome-based things. So yes, even for an organization, Jordan, like the one that you used to work at, that has 100 employees, right? 9 times out of 10, unless you're in the graphic arts field, you're able to do everything you need to at this point in time from a Chrome browser.
Yeah, here's a Chromebook Plus 15-inch with a 12th Gen i3, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gig storage, even Wi-Fi 6E for $279.
Right.
Touchscreen?
It doesn't say that.
Okay.
It probably is, though.
And again, I know it's not the most popular opinion, and I'm not saying don't get a PC or Windows-based machine or a Mac for your people, but man,
I'm totally saying that.
It could be a game changer strategy.
I mean, if you could get 3 people computers instead of 1, and that's all they need.
Yep.
Exactly. And honestly, like, I hate this thought process, but they're also very, like, they're disposable technology at that point.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, yeah, for $279, you're not going to go replace a screen on it.
Yep.
No.
All technology is disposable technology.
And so when the youth, well, yeah, but
Amen,
Chuck, but are you gonna?
Not with framework. Forever laptops.
Are you gonna be okay with throwing a $2,000 laptop away? Right, when the youth department, like, you're going to be frustrated when the youth pastor comes in and goes, I dropped my computer again. Oh, yeah, I dropped my computer again. Bro, this is the 7th time you've broken the screen on this thing, right? If that's a $280 Chromebook, I'm not frustrated. I mean,
after 7.
Maybe after 7, maybe I'm frustrated. But you know what I'm saying? You get what I'm trying to get at here.
I mean, after 2, I'm getting a heavy-duty case for that guy. So
UAG case, baby.
And some, like, gloves that the football players wear to grip.
The sticky gloves?
Oh, yeah.
No, after 2, you buy your own.
There you go. That too.
That's a good thought process. I'm just saying, like, Jordan, I think that one of the things that I got told in this industry for a long time, which was really difficult for me for some reason to wrap my head around, was that when clients come to us, right, they're coming to us for our advice and our expertise, right? Mm-hmm. And that within reason, obviously, it's there's a balance. That, like, we can't go, well, they're not going to like that. Well, the thing is like, they came to us, right? Mm-hmm. So when we sit here and say, no, you need to buy a Chromebook because it makes sense, right? What are the things that we're called to do as Christians, right? We're called to be, to manage things that God's given us well, right?
Stewardship. Yep.
Stewardship, right? That's the big thing. That's a big buzzword. Stewardship on every level, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why buy a $600 laptop, right? Because, like, that's the decent laptops that you can get, right? Is about $600 that you would hand out to someone on a staff, right? Why would I do that when I could do 2 computers for the same cost as that one, and we're not cutting corners, right? Because I hate the idea on the AV side of things, right? When I see people go, oh, we need 12 wireless mics for our worship team, but we only have $700. So we're going to go and buy an offshore product from Amazon that's going to cause all sorts of problems for everyone, including the team, including the Wi-Fi, including anything. Like, I've literally had clients that their wireless mics are causing the IR sensor in the door for the handicap door to not function correctly, right? I've had it where the business next door, because they're in, like, a building where there's, like, a wall that divides them from a business, and that the automatic door in that business, every time the door would open, the mics would drop out, right? And that happens because you're trying to do something that you don't have the money for, right? That's not being a good steward, right? Because now we're going to replace this 1,000 times, right? But these Chromebooks that we're talking about is not that scenario. This just happens to be a field where there is a reliable, good, affordable solution. We should tell people it doesn't make sense to be buying a Mac Mini or buying a Windows desktop at $500, $600, $700 when you could buy a Chromebook for $280, and it's going to literally serve you. And if you take care of it like any device, that will last them 3, 4, 5 years probably, if not longer.
You know how much of a game changer it is where you can just go buy an Anchor charger, Type-C charger for $20 with a long 10-foot cord, and then keep those in a cabinet and then share them with everybody.
Yes.
Everybody's computers, phones, laptops use the same.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, you don't have to feel bad because you brought the computer home and for some reason your 2-year-old decided to jump on it like a trampoline. Right. Now you feel like you need to replace that. Right. And I'm not feeling like crap. How am I going to replace a $2,000 laptop or an $800 laptop? Right. On a church, salary. This is where my head goes is like, do we think that Chromebook is a really good option here, or even like the Nooks for some of the stationary people,
not Nooks
or whatever I know there's a bunch of different ones.
But mini computers, yes,
mini computers, right?
At this point, I would I like laptops and then just hooking them to an external display and keyboard. Like then you get the portability for your people, and you don't have to deal with those Nooks and station.
Yeah, I kind of went that way for a while. I stopped because USB hubs are not always super reliable, and people just leave them plugged in all the time and destroy the battery after 6 months. So if people work at a desk, I like to give them a desktop.
That's fair.
And then especially if it's like a $400 desktop and a $200 Chromebook, and it's all synced on Google anyway.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we only got about 5 minutes before we lose Anthony. Was there anything that you guys specifically wanted to talk about email that we haven't kind of already touched on? No? That's good. All right, cool. So last 5 minutes, let's do this. Anthony, we'll start with you, and then you can dip out, and then we'll ask Chuck the same question because I'm curious. What got you into IT? I want to know your story.
Oh, sure. So my sister's first husband was very into, like gaming and stuff in the 90s. Got me into that, gave me some graphics cards and that kind of thing. And then my other sister's husband was also into it. He got me into it. And then when we started going to what was Calvary, which is now Res Life Rockford, and then City Church, I was at Calvary, and there was a guy there that kind of took me on as kind of like mentor me. I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. He owned an IT company. It's just what I've always been interested in. So
is his name Chuck Warren?
No, he's not old enough.
Thank you.
So yeah, I did that. I interned with him during high school, and then I had a short stint in Miami where I worked at an IT company, and then came back, and I've just always been doing it. I can't get enough. I do it at home in my free time.
What part in your memory did you go, oh, I'm an IT professional now?
That's a hard question.
I know.
Probably not that long ago. Imposter syndrome is a pretty big deal.
Uh-huh.
It really is.
I think we all deal with that regularly.
I think the last job that I had just prior to me doing this 2 years ago by myself, it was pretty big, the imposter syndrome. I'm like, this is way over my head. But I worked through it and learned a lot. And by time I quit that because I was comfortable. I quit that job because I knew that, yes, I can actually do this. I know enough to support a business. And so maybe 3-4 years ago,
okay,
I would consider myself comfortable with using the word professional.
Sweet.
I would consider you a professional.
Thank you.
All right, Chuck, same question. What got you into IT, and at what point did you go from like, oh, I do IT things to like I'm an IT professional? Because you are an IT professional. So I'm just gonna stop right before you even get into this, because I know how you are. Like, well, am I really an IT professional? Like, really, I'm a boat captain who
No,
was almost a Navy SEAL.
I was a boat mechanic, and I was the chief engineer. Well, first of all, I was a boat mechanic in a shop where they got a Windows 95 computer to start doing inventory and parts management, and I was the parts manager there. So I had to use the machine. I hated it. I thought it was a flash in the pan. It wasn't going to last. And then they
Computers.
Yep. Yep. I kept using my paper parts system for the longest time. Then I became the chief engineer on a big research and salvage vessel in the Florida Keys. And so I lived on this 130-foot boat with a submarine and everything. And the owner had bought a laptop, it's like that thick and weighed about 8 pounds. And he had two of them, and they had trouble. And he kept wanting me to look at them. And we also have a navigation system on the research boat that was based on Windows 98. And so I'm starting to play with things a little bit there. Then I moved to Michigan, and I was the parts manager for a big marina here in Michigan. And I had to use a Windows computer more and more. And I started to recognize that if I didn't learn about the computer, I was going to get left behind in my job. And at the same time, my wife at the time's parents got a computer for Christmas, and their grandson hooked it up. And he ran all the cabling across the front of the desk and then back to the monitor and the keyboard and everything else. And I, as a boat guy, couldn't stand all that cabling being wrong, And so this is pretty funny. So I had never seen a computer start up. And I shut it down, redid all the cabling, got it all pretty, and I hit the button and it came to the DOS screen, the old black screen, white letters, loading Windows, and I thought I broke it. And I grabbed the phone and called Gateway, and I'm like on hold, waiting for Gateway to pick up the machine. And it went to the Windows 98 desktop, and I was like, click. Okay, I got to learn this stuff. And so I ended up recognizing that I had to learn it anyway. I was kind of thinking I should do something different than crawl around in greasy bilges. And crazy thing, I heard an ad one time on my way to work, went and applied for the class, got into the class, the last person accepted into the last class they had, and came out, and I went and did interviews at 7 or 8 companies for internships. Every one of them wanted to hire me. I was the second graduate of the class only because the first guy lied about what day he was taking the test. I was tutoring people in the class, and I ended up at a consulting company out by the airport, and what company was their biggest client.
Yep.
And so I ended up there, and I took to it right away. It just made sense to me. Everything I knew I'd made the right choice. And then about 8 months in, I got laid off because we were hitting that height of that bubble in 2001. And I got laid off, and the church had a conniption. They were unhappy.
See, Anthony.
And they called the company and said, get him back or we're firing you. And so I ended up back at the church, and I made a deal. I said, look, I didn't want to burn any bridges. So I said to the consulting company, can you promise never to lay me off again? They said, no. I said to the church, will you work with me as a consultant? Because I'd like to do work for other clients. And they said, yes. And the rest is history. So I actually considered myself an IT professional fairly early on, probably second year. Really felt like I was doing the right thing.
Nice. Jordan, I'll pose the same question to you.
Yeah. I think the easy answer is like when you start getting paid for it, but I don't know. I am also just I'm like a technologist guy.
Mm-hmm.
I just get things quick and I learn things quick. Chuck, you even kind of talked to your gifting, and like it worked. It made sense to you. So for a long time, me and technology, I've always just had that. It's like, oh, you just try this, do this. But now working in the industry, it's a little bit different. it's funny too, just talking about imposter syndrome. The industry changes so much. And Chuck, I'm sure you could speak to this. It does change so quick. And that's where it's always a question like, man, am I on it? Am I in the know? Like, oh, I didn't know about this, or like, oh, I heard somebody talking about this, or man, I just heard about this, and they're already like a pro at that. So, for me, it was probably a little bit more recently doing IT, but been using technology and using managing and doing things with technology for a long time. So,
Yeah,
I think for me too, it's just again coming from an audiovisual lighting background is 20 years ago, it's like, hey, yeah, some things networked or some things kind of went in there. But as more and more gear has been more, I would even say, network critical or like a must for network or IT, that's where I started learning a little bit more about it and just realizing like, all right, this is not going anywhere. So,
yeah. I think for me, like, I'm Jordan, I'm a lot like you, where it's like all things tech are kind of more my thing. But I'm an AV guy through and through, right? I cut my teeth running sound. The thing that got me in the industry was being pulled into the sound booth to run Song Select back in the day. And I think that was a program that was written by someone at our church at the time. Chuck, you might be able to talk into that. I don't know if you remember that or not.
No.
But so I did that for a long time and then learned audio when when the high school, they built a new high school room, and the high school room that they were currently using, like they were just like, all right, well, it's the junior high room, see ya. And like everyone was like, how do we run sound in here? And the high school guy that was like, his name's Jerry, and he's like, well, I guess I can come back and I can show you how to do things. And he's like, this is a DI box. Things go in this way and cables come out this way and they land here. And then you turn these knobs and they all kind of do something different. All right, well, see you later. Got to go back to service. So that was kind of like the extent of my training there. And I'm at an age where I got to witness the analog to digital transition. And I remember like when the M7s and the PreSonus Studio Lives came out. The Studio Lives I remember more just because like that was, the more affordable, smaller version of that, which was a lot more like, that was the first console that they were like, hey, we're going to try and get everyone, right? Thank God they didn't. But and then we were, some of the first, we were one of the first churches in the country to get an X32. And then when they released the M32, we were the first church, like we actually air freighted that in. So it was like we were the first M32 deployed in the United States, like officially installed.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, super dope. And so we got that, and then it was like, Dante started becoming more of a thing. Amplifiers were being, DSP'd by themselves. You no longer needed serial connections. You were able to do everything off IP. So it was like everything in the AV world started coming, and then it was like, oh, my ATEM is on, a computer, and so it's like more and more computer, more and more computer, more and more computer. So ended up kind of just becoming more of an IT guy because of the relationship to the AV side of things. So I hesitate to say that I'm not an IT professional because like I know that I am, but like that imposter syndrome type thought process, right? It's like I know more than, the people that say I know enough to be dangerous. Like I know more than that. But
you know when to stop.
Exactly, right. And that's, I think, my thing. I know when to call someone, right? Hey, I'm stuck here. Help me out here. I need a fresh set of eyes, right? I also know when to burn something down and start over, those kind of things. So it's like I am a professional, and I would say probably in the last like 3 years is kind of when I've, been able to sit there and say, yeah, like I know what I'm doing. Like I can't say that I dabble, it's like I legit know what I'm doing. So, and then I have, great people, surrounding me that I go, hey, Jordan, What'd you do here? Hey, Chuck, help me figure this out. Right? I'm beating my head against the wall for this DNS thing. What's the problem here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony, same thing, right? I'll call him and say, hey, what do you think here? Type thing. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Jordan, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, we definitely can.
We already lost Anthony. He had a heart out. So,
yep. Let us know if you guys would like to talk about like people management or like customer relations managers, like Planning Center and church community builder, and there's loads of others. But that was another topic we had also talked about, chatting about. But let us know in the comments down below. Any questions or anything you guys are wondering about, or even how did you guys get into tech and into IT? So,
yeah. Make sure you subscribe. We're over 1,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, it's huge.
If you're listening to on podcasts, make sure you go and give us a 5-star review because we don't accept anything lower than that.
Mm-hmm.
Just comment. It really helps. YouTube know that people are actually watching this and that they want it. So it helps, get it in front of more people. I won't use the A word because I know everyone's tired of it. But it's true. It really is a thing. And we do really appreciate the time that you guys put into watching this. If you got more questions, I will say this. I'll give you a disclaimer about the whole legal things about, the DIE. We are not lawyers. We're not giving you legal advice. I'm not telling you to break, their rules. We're coming at it from a standpoint of what we've experienced and just kind of common knowledge, common thought processes. Like work your way through this problem, right? Do you see this, right? Or is this a problem? So we're not lawyers. So do what you guys will.
I wish I was.
I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. And there's parts of me that wish I still would have followed that, and then there's other parts of me when I've had to deal with them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really glad I didn't become a lawyer because in lawsuits people never win. The only people that win in lawsuits are the lawyers. So,
but even did they win because they had to deal with it all?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like us dealing with IT things, right? We won because we got paid. And even if you have frustration, you still got paid. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah, but we didn't get paid as good as lawyers.
That is true. That is true.
So cheap legal advice here. No.
Become a lawyer. Screw IT. Just go to law school. I'm pretty sure Harvard's got all of their law lectures on YouTube. So do that and then go take the bar.
Career advice.
You heard it here first, people. All right. Thank you so much. Subscribe, comment down below. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Thanks.